Alright, welcome back. We are on the turn 5 replay, so we are now entering the very tail end of August. The Austrians are attempting to fight back here in Galicia. You can see the Russians are here in force, but the Austrians have a pretty good chance here to inflict some good damage in the process. You'll notice Austria is kind of gradually pulling back towards the mountain passes. This is part of a longer-term strategic plan for Austria. That territory is much easier to defend, so we're just going to leave like a light screen and do as much damage to the Russians as possible while we can, and then we're going to gradually fall back to the mountain passes and attempt to hold there until German forces can arrive in force in 1915. But in the meantime, we're able to inflict at least decent casualties against the Russians, although the Austrians are taking some damage as well in the process. This is all about just trying to slow the Russians down at this point. Over here in East Prussia, we have an opportunity to inflict some damage on this cavalry corps that's poked its head out just a little too far. We're still going to remain on the defensive for the most part, but we'll take the damage that we can inflict while we can. And that's a nice little hit that's inflicted on the Russian headquarters. That'll help hurt their supply at least a little bit. It's back on the Galician front. Again, just sort of organizing our defense. This is the Serbian front. The Austrians are going to have to kind of patch up a little here. And Montenegro are still doing a little bit of damage. As you can see, that's a fairly stout defense that we've got going now. Although Limburg is probably going to fall within another turn or two. Here, back on the Western Front, we basically just made the decision that we're going to kind of hold our line, since it doesn't look like we're going to be able to break through into France. And instead, we're just going to see if we can maybe wipe out Belgium while we still have the opportunity, and possibly even push on to Calais. We had mud set in Belgium this turn, which slowed down our offensive considerably. We weren't able to push ahead like I had originally hoped and planned to. So this is going to be a little bit of a race of time and see if we can maybe break Belgium in time. The Germans make their first attack on the British Expeditionary Force. If you'll notice, I've made recon bombers capable of striking twice. Initially, they don't have quite as much firepower. That's to keep them from being a little too overpowered. I thought it was a nice change. Along the rest of the Western Front, we're basically just sort of lining up. In case the French move forward, we'll be able to smack them pretty hard. But at this time, we're not going to move forward much more. We're going to take the chance to maybe strike at St. Mihiel a little. They're exposed some. French fall back. So kind of a little bit of a wash of a turn for the Central Powers on the Western Front. I'd really hoped to be able to push a little bit harder while I still had the chance to. Sometimes the weather just doesn't cooperate. You can see we're moving the artillery up. It's going to be firing on Antwerp shortly. Antwerp we're going to try and deal with here in September or October. I don't want the British trying to move a corps in there and making it more difficult to take. Here we have a submarine that was trying to bypass the blockade. It actually ran into a cruiser or battleship. More Russian troops arriving in Moscow. You'll see we still haven't had the industrial capacity to transport any of those troops yet. We have reached the end of Turn 5's replay. Things are starting to get pretty hot on both sides of the fronts. The Russians lost one infantry corps and one cavalry corps that turn. List of events. You'll notice this one. Lehman von Sanders takes charge of Ottoman units. That gives them a headquarters unit on the Gallipoli Peninsula. A little bit of diplomatic advice to the Entente regarding Norway and Sweden. You can either send subs to try and break up that convoy income to Germany, or you can try diplomatic pressure. Alright, so here we've got a request from Lord Kitchener asking about the Indian Army. Since the French front seems to be settling down, I'm going to have them embark in Egypt. Hopefully that does not end up coming back to bite me in the behind. Alright, and we have a request from Joffrey asking about Ferdinand Foch and if we would like to bring him out of retirement, or I'm sorry, elevate him up to an HQ status. This is always a difficult decision. France is strapped for MPPs at the moment, so I think I'm actually going to say no to this and just cycle in reserves. I'd like to be able to patch up any quick damages that are done. We can always bring Foch in later by just paying his normal headquarters cost. We're ready for him. And you'll see we got some new units that came online. The first new British units that come out are 3rd Corps Infantry, 1st Cavalry Corps. That'll help a great deal in France. We've got 2 reserve corps in France. We also have a full corps that's been formed in Montenegro, which will be very helpful in trying to sustain that defensive effort. Just real quickly before we end, I'm just going to do a little quick snapshot of what the front looks like. You'll see the French have a very nice little line going here, mostly behind river lines. British have a nice little army going up here. The strong infantry corps will be able to inflict some pretty good damage as it pulls back. We'll also have some reinforcements arriving shortly. Belgium army is starting to look a little beat up. Hopefully it'll hold. Doubtful, since that's where I'm going to throw the weight of the German army. But all across the French front, things look pretty solid. You'll notice that French MPPs are very low. They tend to be low in the fall with this mod. Russian front looks very good. We are going to be sweeping into Galicia very heavily this turn. Probably take Limburg. Polish front starting to look a little concerning. I've got a few 10 strength infantries that I want to try and get lined up just in case the Germans start moving towards this area. This section of the Russian line will probably start coming down to try and break through one of these passes of the fort of Przemysl, I think is how it's pronounced. Serbian front is looking kind of beat up. I'm going to have to probably address that before too much longer. That's pretty much our fronts. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this edition of my AAR, and I hope you will join me next time.